The question is, how deep do you want to go? Naturally, with Pluto in my third house of communication, the answer is let's go swimming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. I'm here to share with you the beautiful transmissions from the walls of my cavernous heart and to witness the great frequency shift that we are moving into as a collective and the beautiful deep work that we are doing as we glide into the age of Aquarius. This is the Liminal Frequencies podcast. Let's go. Wow, it is such a blessing to be co-creating and existing on this spinning planet with you all. And I know that you have felt things get kind of dark lately, and you felt the collective consciousness just going through waves and throes of transformation and transition. And it is really hard to see that, but just know that we're seeing a little bit more of the layers being unpeeled and uncorked. And that these layers of darkness, they've always been there, but now we have this light coming through. And that's why I want to share with you my journey. And so today I decided that it's time for me just to share one-on-one with you and cultivate a relationship, as we can often hide behind the veil of what's going on, the sounds that we can put through the episodes, the different guests, and whoever's sharing with me on the show, which I love. I found it profoundly beautiful. But what's beneath that is really aptly put for today, some shadow work. And I just wanted to take a time to walk through what I see shadow work as. And shadow work is touching and seeing those unintegrated parts of ourselves. The parts of ourselves that we're not able to bring to the table, we're not able to show up with fully, that we might cast away and criticize and reject. And shadow work can also be these unintegrated memories, thoughts, unconscious beliefs that we are holding on to. And by actively doing our shadow work, all we really need to do is see it, show up with it, hold it, love it, whatever the case may be. Just shining a little bit of light on that is going to help us to integrate ourselves. And for the weird things that are coming up on the planet, like I just want to shine light on it. I just want to encourage the self-seeing. I truly believe that as we do our own work, as we look into our own depths, we transform the world as a whole. So today I wanted to share a quote from Sacred Earth Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno. And I pulled a card for this. It's Connection. And this is this really beautiful ocean creature with starfish, and there's dancing clams on her earrings. And it's like this beautiful prism, this cosmic wonderland of the ocean and of the sea, and how we're all connected by water. Find yourself by losing yourself in a conversation, a story, or someone's eyes. Be vulnerable, be emotional, and be moved to deeper understanding. Empathy is required. Let the pain, suffering, love, and joy of others find a home in your heart. Accepting another without reservation means accepting yourself as well. The spiritual meaning of this is to focus on the subtle divine force inside of you. Recognize this force in all things, for it is in all things and it is in everywhere. Separation from the energy, beauty, grace, and power of the Divine Mother is an illusion. Feel her fertility and everlasting peace inside of you. Through her love, life unfolds with endless blessings. Through you, her love flows out upon the world. And for me, how apt to talk about this unification of our consciousness as moving into what some people call the age of Aquarius. And through astrology, I've been able to put meaning into a seemingly meaningless existential crisis and see that we are choosing this. I actually saw a client between recording the podcast and recording the intro. And, there was definitely some trauma, anxiety, fear around the election. And is this going to be the right choice for all of these factors and variables that are coming in? And we had just talked about the ability of people to wake up. And sometimes what feels like for some a setback is part of that process. And I truly believe that our soul is not just choosing the easiest path and the most fulfilling, fruitful path without choosing something that's going to allow us to really dig deep and discover ourselves and really see ourselves and discover our gifts. And this is a harrowing journey, but we're all here for each other. We're all here for it. And it was really beautiful because this client had mentioned their partner was going through surgery. And after the surgery, they found me. And we started working together on not just the physical, but the emotional and the spiritual levels. And it was like, if that hadn't have happened, if that setback hadn't have happened, then we might not be doing this work, which is such a beautiful thing. And so I invite you to trust the path and trust the process of what may be unfolding for you. Hello, and thank you for joining me on the show. It's really exciting. Today I'm doing my first solo episode. Get a little bit vulnerable and sherry, but I want to address this transformation that we've been embarking on, and it really feels like it is coming to a head. But let's talk about why and how we experience our shadows differently now and how that's going to change and how it already is changing. It's almost as if this ceremony that we're in, that we started in 2008 with Pluto moving into Capricorn, is beginning to come to a close, and we are in the final throes of it. We are coming up on Pluto moving into Aquarius, which has been fluctuating into and out of Aquarius since about March of 2023. To make things even more interesting, we've had Saturn moving through Pisces, which is a lot of words, but Saturn is moving through this last degree of Pisces. Pisces is often represented by the 12th house and the very end, the transformation, the death, the rebirth, the letting go. And so it's been asking us to let go of some old ways of thinking, possibly old paradigms. I'm really excited to hear where this goes, and I want to talk about how it can affect us on a personal and a collective level. So let's talk about Pluto for a minute. Pluto is a planet that has to do with deep transformation, destruction, and rebirth. So Pluto is literally the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's the nudge that you get, the little voice that tells you to move through something in a different way, to really gutturally dissect and go deep. I just came from a dissection workshop in Sacramento. This was about a few weeks ago now. And it was something that I did as my dedication to learning about visceral manipulation, learning about working with the organs and the organ systems, also the nerves, the arteries, and the vascular system, to help to understand where things are in the body when we can actually feel the heart in our hands, the uterus in our hands, when we can poke at the liver. And this being around death thing, I'd never experienced it really. I'd never been around dead bodies, and I didn't know how I was going to react. And at first I was like, okay, is here. The woman, her toenails were painted, so that adds a whole another layer of humanity to it. So I just like went in, and with the expectation that I was gonna just move through, breathe through all the smells, the lab didn't use any formaldehyde, so it was a completely fresh dissection, which keeps things more intact. But yeah, there are things that come back with that, like just the smells and the intensity. I was in a coroner's office in Sacramento, and the coolers were full. And so there were some random bodies that were put in the hallways, and you would see that they were kind of covered up. But this whole feeling of death and transformation is something that we don't really visit every day. I mean, it's interesting as a meditation to buy flowers and then to feel, what does it feel like as the flowers start losing their life and then they start to go away. And in fact, I've heard it's not so good of feng shui to keep flowers around when they're dead, to just allow them to recycle and move them out of your physical space, because they are absorbing a lot of energy in that alchemical process. So yes, to honor this transformation, I guess subconsciously I was working with cadavers, and yeah, for me, I started off like, oh, this is okay. And during lunch, I did a little self-care, took a little nap, had to get up really early to be there. And after the time outside, having lunch, chilling out, going back in, it was like, ooh, this is more intense. So, and little things about the body just can be triggered to you. Like one person, the brain is really gross because it doesn't stay intact, the limbs. So yeah, just to to bring you this incredible visual, like these are things that are really beautiful to visit, but we can't desensitize ourselves to these things because we are in living bodies and we do want to continue to survive and to live. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, people they feel like they have a last choice, maybe, whether they're going to push the button or they're going to live, whether they're going to let go or they're going to hold on. And it is really our instinct to survive. We really want to. And in these transits, we are holding on to and trying to continue the survival of our ego, our relationships. So yeah, just a little history on this. In 2008, the planet Pluto, call it a planet or an asteroid. I'm curious when that happened, that they said Pluto is not a planet, because to me, that is the most Pluto in Capricorn thing. Like, Pluto doesn't have the authority. So Pluto in Capricorn represents authority, career, and ambition. Capricorn is like the father. And as we moved into that phase, Pluto in Capricorn in 2008, there was a financial crisis and there was a market crash and people lost everything. People lost their jobs, and it had a lot to do with corruption and the people having their hands in pockets where they shouldn't have their hands. People having the knowledge of markets and things, manipulating this knowledge and using it against people. And yeah, now we're seeing more and more transparency, more and more behind the veil of what's actually going on. And Pluto moving into Aquarius will move towards social reform and evolutionary thought. And so I just want to call in this beautiful age of Aquarius, this time where government will allow this free exchange of ideas and free thinking. I think it will be really beautiful to see that transpire, however long it takes. We're here for it. And we're ready to take that new trip. On this collective level, which Aquarius more represents the collective, it more represents us coming in together as a whole, equanimity, and not this like authority. The father knows best, so we better do this. We better go to bed on time. We better do everything right. For me, this was an interesting journey when I found out when Pluto went into Capricorn, and it coincided with me finishing college, getting ready to graduate, and very terrified of graduating college and going into this market where the market's crashed. But I had put in an IUD in 2009, and everything in my pelvis went sideways after that. It was super uncomfortable. And the strengths in this, what I found in it was that I really leaned into Eastern medicine and the ways that I could heal my body naturally without using drugs, without using surgeries and procedures, because I just felt the huge difference between sitting in office and having somebody say, you could try doubling your dosage of the prescription, and writing or typing on a tablet in the corner of the room, not looking at me, not making eye contact, not seeing my energy, and me sitting in a room with somebody who was just fully seeing me. They were feeling my pulse, looking at my tongue, they were analyzing my biorhythms. And yeah, there's a wonderful woman. I don't remember her name right now. There's a wonderful woman that I met at a program called Standing Against Global Exploitation. And this was around that time, 2008, 2009. And she is an acupuncturist. And it was my first real exposure to Eastern medicine. And this was a center in San Francisco for women who were trafficked, for women who were put into sort of a situation where they're in prostitution and they didn't have much of a choice but to be in prostitution. And so they were given a center, and this was all genders as well. So this was gender binary people, men and women, who were needing support with this particular issue, if I can correct it. And they were working with this medicine with these ear points, and she would do one-on-one sessions for them. I was there to help make lunch, to volunteer, as I was interested in social work and I was interested in alternative medicine. And so I showed up to help make lunches and to volunteer. And this was so that they could get lunches outside of the shelter, which was not open all day. So they had a place to be and they were safe. It's really important to get people off the streets first and foremost. And this program, she offered these ear protocol points for detox, for getting off of drugs and alcohol, for trauma, for stress. And I got to experience this, and she would just put the needles in and everybody would hang out. And I could feel the shift, and I could also feel it. At that time, I was working at a 24-hour crisis facility in another part of California, on the other side of Davis in Woodland. And people would come in. They would usually be on a 24-hour hold. So 5150, somebody calls the police, somebody's tried to commit suicide. They take him to the hospital and they put him in the hospital for 24 hours. And then when they get out of the hospital, these are kind of their options. Like, they're like, come to this space and you will be monitored. So they are monitored. Their medication is given to them all day long. They can kind of come and go as they want to, but they're mostly staying at this facility, getting help, going to groups, getting support. And this is all run by psychiatrists. So guess what? If you don't want to take the drugs, you're out. You're out on the street. And this is really interesting for me to see how we can use our own endogenous hormones and neurotransmitters to help support us, to help us to get off of drugs and alcohol. And it really reminds me that you are the medicine, that everything that you need, that you seek out, is within you. And it is important we have teachers and we have support to find that. But it's also empowering to know that you do have everything that you need within you. So this was a really beautiful transformation for me, I realized, as I moved through acupuncture school. And out of acupuncture school, I found a woman that does visceral manipulation. I wanted something a little bit different. I knew that maybe the answer existed in the tissues of past abuses and violence, and even just information that is in the tissues that is completely unconscious, Pluto territory, past life stuff. So my first dipping my toe into this was just the visceral manipulation, and feeling that I started to want to study it and pursue that. And so that became part of my regular thing, this curriculum, going to these courses. They were offered through the Barral Institute. Jean-Pierre Barral, he's a French osteopath, and he came up with this curriculum because he worked in a lung ward, and people would have all kinds of lung problems. And after the person passed away, they would do dissections of them, and they would see how much damage the PTs did to the fascia and the lungs themselves by forcing movements that the person wasn't ready to make. And so he got to understand and analyze how the viscera needed to be more taken care of and more intact. You can feel it in a physical body. You can feel when, there's blackness, there's cancer around certain parts of the body. Somebody in my lab said we all get cancer. This is part of our process, and the body usually takes care of it. We did see a tumor in the kidney that was part of the person's treatment. And we did see like really hardened plaque in the arteries. And so I think it's really important that we continue to protect our vascular system, our inner water, that we keep exercising, that we work with the right supplements to help move our blood, and that we receive the types of manual work that we're called to receive in order to help keep that moving. So part of my journey was really diving into this. And as I got further in the curriculum, it started to get a little out there. So, and by out there, I mean emotions. We have emotions in our organs and also in our brain, and they're stored in both places. And if we clear the emotion from the organ, or we manipulate the organ, manipulate is manipulation. Manipulation is, I believe in English, takes on a weird connotation when really it's just a gentle way of massaging and waking up the tissues. So there's that. And I found that working with this modality was really opening me up to feeling more information in the tissues. And then fast forward to 2020, I've been working with this, and I hadn't quite studied the emotional side. And 2020 was a big portal. We don't even need to talk about anything that happened in 2020, other than the fact that we started to really open ourselves up to more that is beyond the veil. And we started to see more of ourselves. We started to see more of our shadows. We spend more time in the metamorphosis. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I want to focus on that as we move into Aquarius season, that shadow work isn't bad. It's not scary. It really is just seeing a part of yourself and allowing that seeing to transform you. I was scheduled for a brain and emotions class in August of 2020, which usually we have to wait a while for those upper level classes, usually like 1 to 2 years. And they offer it somewhere that we can take it. And this one was in Portland. So not even my home, area, but I am willing to go to Portland for a class. And obviously this class was canceled. And around the time of 2020, I started seeing things that weren't normal for me. I was feeling the body, and I was listening to the body in this kind of clairsentience and clairvoyance, where I was feeling energy moving through the body and the channels. And then something interesting happened. I felt energy that was not in the body, that was off the body, that was around the brain. And so I have just one Tibetan singing bowl here at this time. And I decided to play the singing bowl into the field, and I noticed that it made a difference. The vibration helped the person process whatever they were trying to process. And so with my own process, deficiency in minerals, I was losing a lot of copper. And I did some tests on myself. I had a whole dark night of the soul with histamine dysregulation. Every food that I ate made me itchy. I had a very short list of foods that I could eat. And I was realizing that there was a lot of toxicity in the environment that I was taking in. There are so many facets and so many aspects to my entire process and my healing that I had to unpack and see. But one of the interesting things was I stopped sleeping through the night and probably around August or September of 2020. And it would be my pattern. I'd be up for a couple hours or a few hours in the middle of the night, and I would spend time journaling. I would write my dreams down. Sometimes I'd study, although I don't know if I recommend studying. Doing a puzzle is probably the worst thing to do in the middle of the night. If anybody knows me, I wear these red glasses at night to help me protect from the blue light. And we're staring at blue light all day long on our phones. The sky has blue light during the daytime, and it's a natural way of letting us know that we're producing the right amount of serotonin and the melatonin at the right time. But it's kind of funny. Using the blue blockers at night, you can't see all the colors. Going into a grocery store is tricky. Playing Twister is difficult. I had these blue blockers on, and I was like trying to do a puzzle, and also the puzzle has some kind of dopamine reward system for me that I just can't really stop the puzzle. But the best thing, a friend of mine who's a nutritional therapist, I would love to have her on the show sometime soon. She told me, have you tried having a snack before bed? And I'd also heard from other sources like honey. Well, I couldn't really do sugar too well, so having a snack in the middle of the night or making sure I ate a little bit before bed, that helped me with my whole conundrum of norepinephrine converting to epinephrine, converting basically dopamine into serotonin so I could sleep and I could rest. And you need copper and vitamin C to do that. So that was a big revealing for me, was why are my minerals so depleted? I even went through the whole process of ordering copper, and I think 2 times I ordered copper and the bottle of copper was destroyed in the mail. I was like, this is weird. And it was not the answer for me because getting copper through a supplement isn't necessarily very bioavailable. And I just stubbornly wanted to forge ahead to receive what I needed. I need this medicine. The test results say it. And not to do the listening and the spiritual revealing of what is actually being shared with me through this process. But the interesting thing about this timeline was I started to work with Akashic Records. I had a practitioner, and I had heard about her and I knew her from town, and I contacted her. It was 2021, and she did a journey for me, a reading, but we kind of went in there together and she showed me things and I could feel it all. And there's a lot there. There's so much that I could potentially unpack, and that's what I'm writing about, is all of the confessions of the channeler, all of the past lives and all of the soul fragments that I needed to reunite with to forge my healing process. And, there were some stories like being in a Turkish prison and being sexually abused and forced to give birth against my will. And there was a pirate ship where I was basically kidnapped. My husband and my son were murdered, and I was taken captive. And I eventually just reframed the situation and brought empowerment in my own way. And that was an ancestral timeline. And all of these things that just listening to my body and listening to what my body needed, my body was very depleted in minerals. And actually the mineral depletion really prevents us from getting our hormones back online. And that was a huge problem for me as well. I didn't have a menstrual cycle. I stopped being able to eat normally. And so I was doing this intermittent fasting to try and give my body some relief from food, and that in and of itself can block the ability to menstruate. let alone the weight loss and the toxicity of various things. So it was interesting though in this process. I I obviously received a lot. I believe the deepest gifts that I've received are from my discomfort and my struggle and alchemizing it. One of the gifts that I received was I was just laying in bed doing this meditation. It's called a 61 point meditation. And you focus on the different acupuncture points throughout the body, which help to bring you deeper, but also continue to stimulate you so you don't ever go deep enough to lose connection with what you're receiving. And this is a lucid dream practice, but I was doing it before I was going to sleep. And all of a sudden, I had a memory, a knowing. We call this in the spiritual world claircognizance. Claircognizance is when you just know things. It's like a friend of mine, she was pregnant, and I was like, you already told us. And I was mistaken, and she'd never told us. I just felt there's this knowing that this was happening. And so I had this knowing that I was on a ship, and it wasn't a pirate ship this time. It was a spaceship. And I was on a ship at a space station in the Pleiades, and I was responsible for deciding if people were going to live or die. I was like the seer that looked into people and saw if they were worth rehabilitating or if they needed to transform and compost. And so this is really interesting in my path as a seer, how many different iterations have taken. And I believe many people have this where maybe their gifts were utilized in a way that was dark, or maybe they weren't seen for their gifts, like they were seen as witches. And I believe that this is just a really beautiful part of where we are right now, and we're awakening to those gifts. And we're awakening through these gifts, sometimes through some serious shadow work and some serious self-seeing. But in the end, inevitably, I feel like that will propel us to what we are celebrating, that we can overcome the victim parts of this happened to me, I was this age, I went to doctors, I had these procedures, things are not quite right, to alchemizing that into a beautiful new transformation and a rebirth of ourselves. And so from that day, I started to realize that really the veil is thinning, and I don't know how to explain it. I would say that there's been a lot of solar flares and a lot of light coming through, and we are just embracing that light and allowing that to come through in new ways as codes, as information. And there's a veil that's being lifted for sure, because I feel it in myself and in my clients that people have this stronger inner knowing, this stronger intuition. And, something like 2020 could really anchor us back into that intuition, because we felt the existential threat, and we felt the desire to want to overcome that and to live, to listen to our body, to tap into what we need, and to listen to the collective. I feel that during the pandemic, I was extremely desiring of service and still being of service, even if I wasn't going to touch people one-on-one directly in my office space. I wanted to touch people in their hearts. I wanted to write. I wanted to share activations, qigong, downloads. So yeah, after that, I really started to dive into the Akashic Records and learn how to access it, how to access and give journeys to clients to take them through this space. And the Akashic Records is this incredible field. It's this energy field, and it's this frequency where when you tap into it, you connect with the guides of yourself or of your client that you're working with as well. And together you go into this space, and it's like a choose your own adventure. You're exploring what you need to receive for the highest good and unpacking it. And it can come in so many forms. It can be very auditory, it can be visual, it can be liminal, it can be subconscious, that we can receive these attunements and downloads. And so in a way, it's the creativity for me. Now that I tap into the creativity, it's really me receiving the gifts from my guides, from spirit, of what wants to be transmuted, what wants to be transformed in the collective, and how we can utilize that to attain a higher state of consciousness and a higher state of being. So, look at your astrology chart. If you know your birth time, you can use a website like astro.com or Cafe Astrology to find your birth chart. And in your birth chart, it will tell you where you have Capricorn and Aquarius. What house rules Capricorn and what house rules Aquarius, and maybe what else is in there, what else is playing in this energy right now. And Capricorn may rule a chart of something you've been really dealing with for a long time, and it's been really hard. And in this process of moving into Aquarius, the door is shutting. The door may not feel good to shut. It may be heavy and loud, but the door is closing on that. And I invite you into this ceremony to dance with that. Not just what the shadow was, not just what hurt and what was uncomfortable, but what has been unpeeled from your being, what has been transmuted in your soul, and what's now liberating for you to like really dance with and step into in the age of Aquarius. And look at where you're going into. And you've already probably felt this a little bit, how you've started to work in this area of your chart that is ruled by Aquarius. For me, this is my 7th house. This is my house of relationships and partnerships. This is where my North Node is. And so this is something I've definitely felt like, where is this going? And what am I ready to step into? And how can I really focus on my own energy and my vessel and this transformation and really be ready to step into and embody my truth in this? So I hope this was inspiring and enlivening, and just know that we're all in this together. I don't know anybody right now who's not having a hard time. And I think some people are better at others than hiding it and just saying like, no, I got this, like I'm good. But if we can just join together and connect. And this is why I was called to have a collective consciousness clearing on the 19th of November on Tuesday. That's going to be at 10 in the morning. And so I would love to have you guys come and join me and be a part of this collective consciousness healing, that we can put everything on the table and we can join our frequencies and vibration for the purpose of clearing and transmuting. And you are an alchemist. You're a warrior. You inspire me, and I'm so grateful that I had the pleasure of speaking with you today. I'm so grateful you're here with me for this whole journey and my first solo episode. And I just feel like this podcasting for me is like creating a fire space where we can all talk around it. So I really want to hear from you. I want to hear about your gifts, about your light work, about what you've been stepping into, and about what lenses or frequencies have allowed you to explore this terrain and this transformation. And I also want to invite you to my Spiritual Entrepreneurs Networking group. I will have a link to all of that in my episode. And I'm so excited to have you join me for all of the magic that we can be co-creating together. So please share the show with anybody that you feel is super aligned and would have a better day for listening to the show. Now, let's put a ribbon on this show with a reading from Kim Cran's archetype deck, The Heart. It is possible from an imaginal point of view to sense the heart as a place. Either we are there within the realm of expansion and compassion, or we have drifted somewhere else. There is no in-between. It is common for us to leave this archetypal center without realizing it, as the world, with its seductive twists and turns, offers us frequent departure. We may even become a stranger to the landscape of the heart, leaving it vacant for long stretches of time. The seat of the heart is often reclaimed by nature, music, dance, and the presence of children or animals. This card encourages us to move past the layers of life's tangles and knots and enter the wild and sacred center of the self. The most precious throne in the galaxy is awaiting your return. How beautiful to come back home to the heart. And to bring this full circle, I had the most incredible experience at the cadaver lab, touching the heart, holding the heart, being able to feel the inside of the heart as it was dissected and cut open, and with the blood, the purest, richest blood in the body at my fingertips. And just being able to interface with this divine. There's so much that we're just flesh and bone. We can pull it apart and it feels like that's all there is. But knowing that the life that emanates from that heart, the memories that it has, the electromagnetic frequencies that it sends out are so potent. So if you can, I want you to close your eyes and imagine your heart as a beautiful throne. That beautiful throne to which you return every night and every morning after your astral travels. Your metaphysical home where your soul decided to take up residency for this brief moment we call this lifetime. And I want you just to sit in all of the juiciness and the sweetness of that heart. All of the work that it does, all the projections onto other dimensions, other realms, the communication that it contains within it, its power. Sitting with that for a moment, returning to that cavern in the heart to paint your masterpiece.